Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of the Terra Nova. The large windows showed nothing but black space and distant stars. His ship was moving through hyperspace toward a new world where humans would build their first home beyond Earth. Behind him, 10,000 people slept in cold chambers dreaming of the new life waiting for them. "How much longer until we reach the system?" Jake asked his second officer, Lisa Hayes. She was watching the navigation screens with careful eyes. "About 6 hours, Captain," Lisa replied. "All systems are working fine. The colonists are safe, in their sleep chambers." Jake nodded and looked out at the stars again. This mission was the most important thing humans had ever tried to do. Earth was getting crowded, and people needed new places to live. The planet they were heading to had been named New Eden. It had breathable air, fresh water, and land perfect for farming. Danny Rodriguez, the chief engineer, came onto the bridge carrying a data pad. "Captain, I've finished checking all the colony equipment. The prefab buildings are secure, the farming machines are ready, and the power generators are working perfectly." "Good work, Danny," Jake said. "In a few days, we'll be watching the first human city rise on an alien world." None of them knew that death was already watching them. Far away in the dark of space, 3 huge ships waited like hunting wolves. These ships belonged to the Vorthak, a race of aliens who had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years. They were massive creatures, standing 9 feet tall with thick gray skin that could stop most weapons. Their hands ended in claws that could tear through metal, and their yellow eyes could see in complete darkness. The Vorthak were not just fighters. They were hunters who lived for the thrill of the chase. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved entire species. But they did not just want to rule other races. They wanted to hunt them for sport. War Chief Krextal stood in the command center of his flagship, the Bloodfang. His scarred face showed the marks of 100 battles. Around him, his warriors prepared their weapons and checked their hunting gear. They carried nets that could hold the strongest creatures, stun weapons to paralyze their prey, and tracking devices to follow anyone who tried to escape. "Tell me again about these humans," Krextal said to his intelligence officer. "They are weak creatures, War Chief," the officer replied. "They have no natural weapons, no thick skin, no powerful muscles. They spend their time making art and music instead of learning to fight. Their messages to other worlds always talk about peace and friendship." Krextal laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Peace and friendship? How pathetic. What weapons do they carry?" "Simple projectile weapons, War Chief, nothing that could hurt our armor. Their ship has mining tools, but no real military weapons. They are perfect prey." The War Chief walked to a large screen showing the human ship. It looked small and helpless compared to his battle fleet. "We have hunted the swift Zalari who could run faster than our vehicles. We have caught the strong Borak who could lift boulders with their bare hands. But we have never hunted creatures who think they can survive by being peaceful." His warriors growled their agreement. They had studied recordings of human behavior for months. They watched humans negotiating treaties instead of declaring war. They saw humans sending aid to disaster areas instead of conquering weak neighbors. They observed humans creating hospitals and schools instead of building weapons factories. 2. The Vorthak. These actions proved that humans were natural victims. A strong species would take what it wanted by force. A predator species would expand by conquest and intimidation. But humans seemed to prefer cooperation and mutual benefit. "They will make interesting prey," Krextal continued. "We will take them to the jungle world below and release them. Then we will hunt them through the trees and undergrowth. The survivors will become slaves in our fighting pits." The Vorthak had done this many times before. They would capture ships, full of colonists or travelers, transport them to hunting worlds, and then chase them for days or weeks. Sometimes they let a few escape just to make the hunt more challenging. The victims usually died from exhaustion, fear, or despair long before. The Vorthak caught them. "Begin the approach," Krextal ordered. "Decloak our ships and surround the human vessel." The 3 Vorthak ships appeared around the Terra Nova like ghosts becoming solid. Each ship was twice the size of the human vessel, and covered with weapon ports and armor plating. The Bloodfang moved directly in front of the Terra Nova while the 2 smaller ships, Deathstalker and Bone Crusher, took positions on either side. On the Terra Nova's bridge, alarms began screaming. Lisa Hayes stared at her screens in shock. Captain, 3 large ships just appeared around us. They're not in our database of known friendly vessels. Jake Morrison felt his stomach drop. First contact with alien life was supposed to be a moment of wonder and hope. But these ships looked like they were built for war. Try to establish communication. Send them our standard peaceful greeting. Danny Rodriguez was already working at his station. I'm scanning their ships, Captain. They have weapons systems unlike anything we've ever seen. Energy projectors, missile launchers, and some kind of tractor beam technology. Incoming transmission, Lisa announced. It's on multiple frequencies. They want to make sure we receive. To put it on screen, Jake ordered. The bridge filled with the image of War Chief Krextal. His massive form dominated the view, and his yellow eyes seemed to look directly at each human on the bridge. When he spoke, his voice was deep and threatening. Weak humans, Krextal began. I am War Chief Krextal of the Vorthak hunting fleet. Your ship and all souls aboard now belong to us. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be transported to the surface of the world below. Jake stepped forward, trying to keep his voice steady. I am Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel, Terra Nova. We are peaceful explorers seeking to establish a colony. We have no quarrel with you or your people. Krextal's laughter filled the bridge. Peaceful explorers. Yes, we know what you are. We have studied your pathetic species for many cycles. You create music when you should be forging weapons. You negotiate when you should be conquering. You help the weak when you should be destroying them. We offer friendship and trade. Jake continued. Our 2 species could benefit from working together. We do not want your friendship, little human. We want sport. You and your people will be released on the jungle world below. We will give you 1 day to prepare shelters and find weapons. Then we will begin the great hunt. Those who survive may live as our slaves. Those who die will feed our young. The transmission continued with details that made Jake's blood run cold. The Vorthak explained how they had hunted dozens of other species. They described their hunting techniques and the various ways their prey had died. They seemed to take pleasure in the fear they were causing. You have 30 minutes to surrender, Krextal concluded. Lower your shields and prepare for boarding. If you attempt to flee or fight, we will disable your ship and take you by force. Either way, the hunt will begin. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in shocked silence. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same thoughts in their eyes. These aliens were not interested in communication or diplomacy. They saw humans as animals to be hunted for entertainment. Danny, how long would it take to wake the colonists? Jake asked quietly. All 10,000? At least 6 hours, Captain. But some of the military personnel and emergency teams could be awakened in 30 minutes. Jake nodded slowly. The Vorthak thought they were hunting weak, peaceful creatures. They had studied human art and diplomacy but had never seen humans at war. They did not know that the Terra Nova carried former soldiers, Marines, and veterans who had volunteered for the colony mission. The aliens were about to learn that humans had not survived on Earth by being peaceful. They had survived by being the most dangerous predators their world had ever produced. The alarm continued to blare throughout the Terra Nova as Jake Morrison gathered his senior staff in the main briefing room. The walls showed tactical displays of the 3 Vorthak ships surrounding them. Each alien vessel was massive and bristling, with weapons that could tear their colony ship apart. Amy Parker, the security chief, stood at the front of the room with a grim expression. She had been a police officer on Earth for 15 years before joining the colony mission. Captain, I've analyzed their weapon signatures. We're outgunned by at least 10 to 1. Our mining lasers and construction tools weren't designed for combat. What about our colonists? Asked Dr. Ben Turner, the chief medical officer. Most of them are farmers, teachers, engineers, and families. They signed up to build a new world, not fight a war. Jake looked around the room at his crew. These were good people who had dreamed of exploring the stars and creating a better life for humanity. Now they faced creatures who wanted to hunt them like animals. How many of our colonists have military backgrounds? Amy checked her tablet. About 300 out of 10,000, Captain. Former soldiers, Marines, police officers, and security personnel. Most of them retired from service years ago, but they still have their training. Dr. Turner was studying data on his own screen. Captain, I've been analyzing the alien communication signals. There's something important here. The Vorthak biological scans show they've never encountered human stress responses before. What do you mean? Jake asked. They've studied us during peaceful times, Dr. Turner explained. They've seen humans negotiating, creating art, helping each other. But they've never seen what happens to humans when we're threatened. They don't know about adrenaline, about fight or flight responses, about what we become when our families are in danger. Danny Rodriguez leaned forward. You're saying they don't know humans can fight? I'm saying they don't know what humans become when we fight, Dr. Turner replied. Every predator species they've encountered probably showed aggression all the time. We're different. We can be peaceful for years, decades even. But when someone threatens our children, our homes, our people, we become something else entirely, Jake felt a cold determination settling in his chest. The Vorthak had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were weak because they chose peace when possible. They didn't understand that choosing peace was a luxury that came from being strong enough to choose war instead. Amy, wake up every person with military or security experience, Jake ordered. I don't care if they're 70 years old or retired 20 years ago. We need everyone who knows how to fight. Captain, Amy said quietly, are we really going to fight them? They're 9 feet tall with natural armor and claws. They bleed, don't they? Jake replied. If they bleed, we can kill them. The next 20 minutes passed quickly as the crew prepared for war. Amy worked with Dr. Turner to wake up the military colonists while Danny began converting mining equipment into weapons. The industrial fabricators that were meant to build houses started producing crude ammunition and explosive devices. Among the first colonists awakened was Tony Mitchell, a former Marine sergeant who had served 3 tours in combat zones before retiring to become a farmer. When Amy explained the situation, his peaceful expression changed into something harder and more dangerous. How many boarders are we expecting? Tony asked, already thinking like a soldier again. Unknown, Amy replied, but they'll probably send a small force first to test our defenses. Tony nodded. Good. Let them underestimate us. Wake up Kate Sullivan, Pete Johnson, and Maria Santos. If we're doing this, we need medics and demo experts. Dr. Kate Sullivan had been an Army medic for 8 years before becoming a civilian doctor. Pete Johnson was a former Navy explosive ordnance disposal specialist who now worked as a mining engineer. Maria Santos had been a Marine sniper before joining the colony as a hunting guide. As these veterans awakened, they immediately began transforming the Terra Nova from a peaceful exploration vessel into a fortress. They knew the ship's layout better than the aliens did, and they understood how to use that advantage. The cargo bay became a killing field. Tony and his team set up positions behind cargo containers, creating overlapping fields of fire. They rigged mining charges to blow if the aliens tried to advance too quickly. The corridors leading from the cargo bay were filled with improvised traps and ambush positions. Remember, Tony told his hastily assembled squad, these aliens have been hunting other species for thousands of years, but I bet they've never hunted anyone who hunted them back. The Vorthak had been waiting patiently for the humans to surrender. When the 30-minute deadline passed with no response, War Chief Krextal became annoyed rather than concerned. Send a boarding party, he ordered. 12 hunters should be enough to secure the ship. Stun the adults and separate the young ones for later training. The boarding pod launched from the Bloodfang and attached to the Terra Nova's cargo bay. 12 Vorthak warriors emerged, expecting to find cowering humans begging for mercy. Instead, they found an empty cargo bay with scattered containers and dim lighting. Spread out, ordered the lead hunter. Find the humans and begin the capture. The Vorthak moved forward confidently. Their enhanced vision could see clearly in the darkness, and their natural armor made them feel invulnerable. They had done this hundreds of times before with dozens of different species. Tony Mitchell watched through his scope as the aliens entered his kill zone. He waited until all 12 were inside the cargo bay before giving the signal. Light them up. The cargo bay exploded with gunfire, modified mining lasers, Improvised projectile weapons and explosive charges turned the space into a storm of death. The Vorthak, who had expected easy prey, found themselves under coordinated attack from multiple directions. The aliens' natural armor protected them from some of the weapons, but the humans had studied the first alien transmission carefully. They aimed for joints in the armor, sensory organs, and other weak points. Maria Santos, positioned high in the cargo bay's upper level, picked off targets with precision shots from a modified industrial laser. The Vorthak tried to charge their attackers, but Pete Johnson's mining charges channeled their advance into predetermined kill zones. Dr. Sullivan moved between positions, treating wounded humans and keeping them in the fight. Within 5 minutes, 11 Vorthak warriors lay dead in the E cargo bay. The 12th, wounded and terrified, fled back to the boarding pod and escaped to report what had happened. On the Bloodfang, War Chief Krextal stared at the surviving warrior in disbelief. "You're telling me that 11 elite hunters were killed by farming creatures with mining tools?" "They fought like demons, War Chief," the survivor gasped. "They knew we were coming. They were ready. They showed no fear even when we roared our battle cries. They just kept shooting." Krextal's confidence began to crack. In all his years of hunting, he had never lost an entire boarding party to prey animals. These humans must have been warriors in disguise. Send 50 hunters this time, take no chances. But Tony Mitchell and his team were already preparing for the second wave. They had studied the dead Vorthak warriors, learned about their weapons and armor, and adapted their tactics accordingly. "Kate, how many wounded do we have?" Tony asked. 3 with minor injuries," Dr. Sullivan replied. "Everyone else is ready to fight?" "Good. They'll send more this time. Probably a lot more, but they still don't understand what they're fighting." Amy Parker joined them in the cargo bay, carrying additional weapons and ammunition. "The captain says more colonists are waking up. People are volunteering faster than we can arm them." Tony smiled grimly. The Vorthak wanted to hunt humans. Now they're going to learn what happens when humans decide to hunt back. War Chief Krextal could not believe what his surviving warrior was telling him. 11 of his best hunters were dead, killed by creatures that were supposed to be easy prey. The Vorthak had hunted across the galaxy for thousands of years, and nothing like this had ever happened before. "You must be mistaken," Krextal growled at the wounded warrior. "Humans are weak. Our intelligence reports show they spend their time making art and music. They negotiate instead of fighting. They help their enemies instead of destroying them." The surviving hunter's yellow eyes were wide with fear. "War Chief, I saw what they did to my pack brothers. These humans did not run or beg for mercy. They waited in darkness like patient predators. They knew exactly where to aim their weapons. When we charged, they did not scatter. They worked together like a hunting pack." Krextal struck the reporting warrior across the face with his clawed hand. "Silence. You bring shame to our people with your cowardice. 50 hunters will go this time. I will lead them myself." The war chief gathered his personal guard, the most experienced killers in his fleet. These were Vorthak who had survived hundreds of hunts and conquered dozens of worlds. They had never failed to capture their prey, no matter how dangerous or clever. "Listen well," Krextal addressed his warriors. The first group was careless. They expected easy victory and paid the price. We will not make the same mistake. These humans may have some fight in them, but they are still just soft creatures with primitive weapons. The 50 Vorthak warriors prepared their equipment carefully. They carried heavy stun weapons that could drop a charging beast, nets strong enough to hold the largest predators, and personal armor that had been tested against every known weapon in the galaxy. On the Terra Nova, Tony Mitchell was preparing his people for the next assault. Word had spread through the ship about the first battle, and more colonists were volunteering to fight. Teachers, engineers, and farmers were learning to use improvised weapons and take combat positions. "They'll come in larger numbers this time," Tony told his expanded team. "Maybe 50 or more. We can't meet them head-on in open combat. We need to use the ship's layout to our advantage." Dr. Kate Sullivan was treating the few wounded from the first battle, while also preparing medical supplies for what was coming. "Tony, I've been studying the dead aliens. Their armor is strong, but it has weak spots at the joints and neck area. Their weapons are powerful but seem designed for stunning rather than killing. They want us alive, Maria Santos observed. She was checking her improvised sniper rifle, a modified mining laser with enhanced focusing crystals. That gives us an advantage. They're trying not to damage us too much. Pete Johnson had been busy throughout the ship, setting up explosive traps and defensive positions. I've rigged charges in the main corridors. We can channel them into kill zones and then blow the passages behind them. Amy Parker arrived with a group of 20 new volunteers. Among them was retired Colonel Frank Weber, who had commanded an infantry battalion before joining the colony. There was also Linda Chang, a former Special Forces medic, and Robert Hayes, an ex-Marine demolitions expert. Colonel Weber, Tony said with relief. We could use your experience, sir. Frank Weber looked around at the defensive preparations with approval. Good work, Sergeant. What's our tactical situation? Tony quickly explained their plan. The humans would not try to hold the cargo bay again. Instead, they would let the aliens board and then attack them throughout the ship using guerrilla tactics. Small teams would hit the Vorthak from multiple directions, then disappear into maintenance tunnels and service corridors. The ship is our territory now, Weber said. We know every passage, every hiding spot, every system. They're the ones who are lost and confused. The second Vorthak assault began an hour later. 3 boarding pods attached to different parts of the Terra Nova, and 50 alien warriors poured into the ship. War Chief Krextel led the main group through the cargo bay, while smaller teams entered through service hatches and maintenance airlocks. The aliens expected to find the same defensive positions as before, but the cargo bay was empty except for the bodies of their fallen warriors. Krextal examined the scene with growing unease. The humans had stripped weapons and equipment from the dead Vorthak, learning from their enemies. Spread out, Krextal ordered. Find the humans and bring them down. Show no mercy for their resistance. The Vorthak moved through the ship in hunting formation, but they quickly discovered they were not the hunters anymore. Small groups of humans attacked from behind, from above, from directions the aliens never expected. The colonists used maintenance shafts to move unseen and struck at the most vulnerable moments. Tony Mitchell led a team of 10 humans in an ambush at the main corridor junction. When 15 Vorthak warriors passed beneath their position, the humans dropped from ceiling panels and attacked from point-blank range. The aliens' armor could not protect them from weapons fired at close distance into weak spots. The battle was unlike anything the Vorthak had ever experienced. In all their previous hunts, prey animals either ran away or fought desperately in the open. But these humans disappeared after each attack, melting away into passages too small for the large aliens to follow. Maria Santos set up sniper positions throughout the ship, moving between them to attack different groups of Vorthak. Her modified laser rifle could penetrate alien armor at long range, and she had learned to target their sensory organs to blind and confuse them. Dr. Sullivan and Linda Chang worked together to keep the human fighters in combat. When someone was wounded, they were quickly treated and returned to the battle. The humans refused to stay down even when injured, which confused and demoralized the Vorthak warriors. War Chief Krextal found himself fighting in the ship's main corridor against Colonel Weber and 8 other humans. The alien commander expected his superior size and strength to overwhelm the smaller creatures, but the humans fought as a coordinated unit. When Krextal charged with his traditional battle roar, the humans scattered and attacked his flanks. When he tried to corner one human, the others attacked him from behind. They used teamwork and tactics that the individual-focused Vorthak could not counter. What are you? Krextal roared as he fought. You are supposed to be peaceful creatures. Colonel, Weber ducked under a claw swipe and fired his weapon into the alien's leg joint. We are peaceful when we can be, but when someone threatens our families, we become something else. The battle raged through the ship for 2 hours. The Vorthak, despite their superior size and weapons, found themselves losing warriors to an enemy that refused to fight fairly. The humans used every advantage they could find, from knowledge of the ship's layout to psychological warfare. Pete Johnson's explosive traps caught groups of Vorthak in corridors, while Amy Parker led security teams in coordinated assaults. The aliens began to realize they were not hunting prey at all, but fighting fellow predators who had been disguised as peaceful beings. By the end of the battle, 37 more Vorthak warriors were dead, including several of Krextal's personal guard. The war chief himself was wounded and forced to retreat with the few survivors back to their boarding pods. The humans had lost 12 colonists, but their sacrifice had proven something important. Humanity was not the easy prey the Vorthak had expected. The galaxy's newest species had revealed they could be as dangerous as any predator when their survival was threatened. War Chief Krextal sat in his command center, staring at the tactical reports in disbelief. In 2 battles, he had lost 48 elite warriors to creatures that were supposed to be defenseless farmers and artists. War Chief, his second-in-command, said carefully, "Perhaps we should reconsider this hunt. These humans are not like other prey species." Krextal's wounded pride would not allow retreat. "No, we will not be defeated by soft creatures from a primitive world. Ready the main assault force. We will board with 200 warriors and crush their resistance completely." But on the Terra Nova, the humans were already preparing for the next attack. They had learned valuable lessons about their enemies and about themselves. The peaceful colonists were discovering they carried the fighting spirit of their ancestors. The same humans who had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain through intelligence, cooperation, and determination. The Vorthak were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their individual strength. It was their refusal to give up, even when facing impossible odds. The silence inside the Terra Nova felt strange after hours of battle. Jake Morrison walked through the corridors, stepping over alien bodies and surveying the damage to his ship. His peaceful colony vessel had become a fortress, and his colonist families had become warriors. Danny Rodriguez met him in the engineering section, his clothes stained with grease and alien blood. "Captain, I've been working on something while the fighting was going on. We captured some of their weapons and equipment. I think I can modify our systems." "What do you have in mind?" Jake asked. Danny led him to a workbench covered with Vorthak technology. "Their energy weapons are more advanced than ours, but they work on similar principles. I can integrate their power cells with our mining lasers. Also, their communication devices might give us access to their ship systems." Dr. Ben Turner joined them, carrying a tablet full of data. "Captain, I've made some important discoveries while studying their equipment. The Vorthak communication network has a weakness. They use a specific frequency that we can disrupt with the right signal." "How does that help us?" Jake asked. "If we can jam their communications, they can't coordinate their attacks," Turner explained. "They'll be fighting as individuals instead of as a team. From what I've observed, teamwork isn't their strong point anyway." Amy Parker arrived with Colonel Weber and Tony Mitchell. Both men looked tired but determined. "Captain," Weber said, "we need to talk about our next move. The aliens will be back, probably with even more warriors." "How many people can we arm now?" Jake asked. "About 200, Amy replied. "Word has spread through the ship about what's happening. People are volunteering faster than we can train them. Engineers, teachers, even teenagers who are old enough to fight." Tony Mitchell set down a captured Vorthak weapon. "Sir, we've learned a lot about how they fight. They're individuals, not team players. They rely on strength and intimidation, but they don't adapt well when their tactics don't work." Colonel Weber nodded. "They're used to hunting prey that runs away or fights desperately in the open. They don't know how to handle an enemy that thinks tactically and refuses to be intimidated." Jake looked at his senior staff. These people had signed up for a peaceful mission to build a new world. Now they were planning military operations against alien invaders. "What are you suggesting?" "We stop defending and start attacking," Weber said firmly. "They have 3 ships out there. The smallest one is closest to us. If we could capture it, we'd have their technology and access to their fleet communications." Danny's eyes lit up. "I've been studying their ship designs through the boarding pod connections. Their smallest vessel has a crew of about 30. If we could get aboard—" "A boarding action?" Jake asked. "Against aliens on their own ship?" Tony Mitchell smiled grimly. Captain, they've been boarding us for hours. Time to return the favor. They won't expect it, and their ship won't be set up for internal defense like ours is now. Dr. Turner was already working on his tablet. If we can disrupt their communications first, the crew on that ship won't be able to call for help immediately. We'd have maybe 30 minutes before the other ships realize what's happening. Jake felt the same cold determination that had been growing since the first alien transmission. The Vorthak had come here expecting easy prey. Instead, they were about to learn that humans could be hunters too. Do it, Jake ordered. Prepare a boarding party. But I want volunteers only. No one should be forced into this. Within an hour, 25 humans had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in their species' history. Tony Mitchell would lead the assault team, with Maria Santos providing sniper support and Pete Johnson handling explosives. Dr. Kate Sullivan insisted on going as their medic, despite the protests of others. Danny Rodriguez had worked frantically to modify their equipment. The boarding party carried captured Vorthak weapons along with human ingenuity. They had improvised breaching charges, portable communication jammers, and medical supplies designed specifically for fighting in alien environments. The target ship was called the Bone Crusher. It was the smallest of the 3 Vorthak vessels, but still twice the size of the Terra Nova. Intelligence gathered from captured equipment showed it had a crew of 32 aliens and was primarily used for transporting prisoners. Remember, Tony told his team as they prepared to launch, we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. Every human colony ship that comes after us, every exploration mission, every peaceful contact with aliens, it all depends on what we do today. The boarding operation began with Dr. Turner activating the communication jammer. The signal disrupted Vorthak frequencies across their entire fleet, causing confusion and preventing coordination between ships. The human boarding party used a captured Vorthak pod to approach the Bone Crusher. The alien ship's automated systems recognized the pod as friendly and allowed it to dock without challenge. 25 humans entered the alien vessel through the docking bay. The interior was dark and humid, designed for creatures much larger than humans. The corridors were wide but low, forcing the 9-foot Vorthak to hunch over but giving humans room to move quickly. The first group of aliens they encountered was completely surprised. 4 Vorthak warriors in the corridor didn't expect to see humans aboard their own ship. Tony's team eliminated them quickly and quietly, using suppressed weapons to avoid alerting the rest of the crew. The human boarding party split into 3 groups. Tony led one team toward the ship's bridge, Maria took another toward the engine room, and Pete headed for the weapon systems. They moved through the alien ship like ghosts, using ventilation shafts and maintenance passages that were too small for Vorthak, but perfect for humans. The aliens on the Bone Crusher began to realize something was wrong when their warriors stopped reporting in. But without communication with their fleet, they couldn't call for help or coordinate their response. Tony's team reached the bridge to find 6 Vorthak officers trying to restore communications. The humans attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, using the aliens' own size against them in the cramped bridge space. The ship's captain, a scarred veteran named Grektar, fought desperately with his claws and teeth. But Tony and his team had learned from their previous battles. They worked together using teamwork and tactics to overcome individual strength. Maria's team captured the engine room after a fierce fight with the engineering crew. The aliens had tried to overload their power systems to destroy the ship rather than let humans capture it, but Pete Johnson's expertise with explosives and engineering allowed the humans to prevent the sabotage. The battle for the Bone Crusher lasted only 20 minutes. When it was over, the humans had captured their first alien starship. More importantly, they had access to Vorthak technology, star charts, and communication networks. Dr. Sullivan treated the wounded while Danny Rodriguez, who had come aboard with the second wave, began studying the ship's systems. "Captain Morrison," he reported over the radio, "you need to see what we found." The data banks of the Bone Crusher contained information that made Jake's blood run cold. The Terra Nova wasn't the Vorthak's first target. They had detailed plans for attacking 12 human colony ships over the next year. Earth's expansion into space was seen as an opportunity for new hunting grounds. Even worse, the Vorthak had been watching human space for months. They knew about Earth's defenses, population centers, and military capabilities. This hunting expedition was just the beginning of a larger invasion plan. "Tony," Jake said over the communication link, "we're not just fighting for our lives anymore. We're fighting for our entire species." Back on the Terra Nova, the crew watched as the captured alien ship slowly moved away from the Vorthak fleet. The humans now had their own warship, primitive by galactic standards but armed with weapons that could threaten the remaining alien vessels. War Chief Krextal stared in disbelief as he realized what had happened. The prey animals had not only defended themselves but had captured one of his ships. In thousands of years of hunting, nothing like this had ever occurred. The humans had stopped being prey. Now they were predators, and the hunt was about to change direction completely. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the captured Vorthak ship, now renamed the New Hope. Danny Rodriguez had worked for hours to understand the alien systems, and now humans controlled technology that was centuries ahead of their own. The ship's weapons could punch through armor that would stop human projectiles, and its engines could outrun anything Earth had ever built. "Captain," Danny reported, "I've integrated our communication systems with theirs. We can monitor all Vorthak fleet transmissions, and I think I can jam their targeting systems when we're ready to fight." Colonel Weber joined them on the alien bridge, still wearing armor stained with enemy blood. "Sir, we've armed the New Hope with every weapon we could salvage from the Terra Nova. Both ships are now ready for combat, but we're still outnumbered 2-1. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the two remaining Vorthak ships. The Bloodfang and Deathstalker were both larger and more heavily armed than the vessel they had captured, but the humans had advantages the aliens didn't know about. "They still think we're prey," Jake said. "They're confused and angry, but they don't understand what they're really fighting. That's going to be their downfall." On the Bloodfang, War Chief Krextal was trying to understand how his perfect hunt had gone so wrong. He had lost almost 100 warriors and an entire ship to creatures that were supposed to be helpless farmers and artists. "War Chief," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving strange signals from the Bone Crusher. The humans appear to be trying to operate our technology." Krextal's rage boiled over. In his entire career, he had never lost a ship to prey animals. The very idea was so shameful that other Vorthak clans would mock his name for generations. "Destroy that ship immediately. I will not allow these vermin to possess Vorthak technology." "But War Chief," the officer said carefully, "some of our warriors might still be alive aboard the Bone Crusher." "Then they died with honor," Krextal snarled. "Fire all weapons. Reduce that ship to scrap metal." The Deathstalker and Bloodfang opened fire on the New Hope with their full weapon arrays. Energy beams and missile volleys streaked through space toward the captured vessel. But Danny Rodriguez had been expecting this response. "Activating countermeasures," Danny announced as he worked the alien controls. The New Hope's defensive systems came online, deflecting or absorbing most of the incoming fire. The ship shuddered under the assault but held together. "Return fire," Jake ordered. Tony Mitchell, now serving as the ship's weapons officer, targeted the Deathstalker's engine section. The modified weapons from both human ships concentrated their fire on a single point, punching through alien armor and causing massive explosions. The Deathstalker's engines went critical, and the ship began spinning out of control. Emergency systems kicked in to prevent a complete destruction, but the vessel was crippled and helpless. War Chief Krextal watched in horror as his fleet was reduced to a single functional ship. The prey animals were not just fighting back anymore. They were winning. "All warriors to battle stations," Krextal commanded. "We will ram their ship and board them directly. This ends now." The Bloodfang accelerated toward the New Hope, its massive bulk intended to crush the smaller human-controlled vessel. But Jake Morrison had been studying Vorthak tactics throughout the battle. "They're going to try to board us," Jake announced to his crew. "Danny, how long until our surprise is ready?" 2 more minutes, Captain," Danny replied. He had been working on a modification to the New Hope's communication systems, using Dr. Turner's research about Vorthak frequency weaknesses. The Bloodfang closed the distance rapidly, preparing to extend boarding tubes and disgorge hundreds of warriors onto the human ship. Krextal planned to personally lead the assault and kill every human he could find. "Now, Danny," Jake ordered. Rodriguez activated his modified communication array, broadcasting a signal on frequencies that Vorthak nervous systems couldn't handle. The effect was immediate and devastating. Throughout the Bloodfang, alien warriors collapsed as their enhanced hearing was overwhelmed by painful feedback. War Chief Krextal felt like his head was being split open by the human signal. Around him, his crew writhed in agony as their sensitive hearing organs were bombarded with frequencies designed to cause maximum pain and disorientation. The Bloodfang's approach became erratic as the crew lost control. The ship passed harmlessly. By the New Hope, its boarding attempt ruined by the human sonic weapon. "Maria, do you have a clear shot?" Jake asked over the communication system. Maria Santos had positioned herself in the New Hope's weapons bay with her modified sniper rifle. Through the ship's targeting system, she could see directly into the Bloodfang's bridge through its viewing ports. "Target acquired," Maria reported. "War Chief Krextal is visible on their bridge. Take the shot." Maria's modified laser rifle, now powered by alien energy cells, fired a single precise beam across the space between ships. The shot penetrated the Bloodfang's bridge viewport and struck War Chief Krextal directly in the head. The mighty alien, Hunter, terror of a dozen star systems, fell dead on his own bridge. His warriors, still suffering from the sonic attack, could barely function. Their ship drifted helplessly as command structure collapsed. Jake opened a communication channel to the surviving Vorthak vessels. When he spoke, his voice carried the cold authority of a predator addressing defeated prey. "Attention, Vorthak fleet. This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel New Hope. Your war chief is dead. Your ships are crippled. You have one chance to surrender and live." The response came from a terrified Vorthak officer on the Bloodfang. We surrender. Please, no more killing. We yield to the human hunters." "You're not surrendering to hunters," Jake corrected. "You're surrendering to people you tried to hunt. There's a difference." The battle was over, but Jake knew the real work was just beginning. The captured Vorthak database had shown him the location of their home worlds and the extent of their empire. More importantly, it contained information about other species they had conquered and enslaved. "Amy," Jake called to his security chief, "prepare boarding parties for both alien ships. We need prisoners for interrogation and technical crews to learn how to operate their technology." Colonel Weber reviewed the captured star charts and military intelligence. "Captain, according to this data, the Vorthak have been planning attacks on 12 human colony ships. We need to warn Earth immediately." Dr. Turner was studying biological data about the Vorthak and their victims. "Jake, there are dozens of species in their database that they've hunted to near extinction. Some of them might still have survivors in Vorthak slave camps." The implications hit Jake immediately. Humanity had not just defended itself from alien predators. They had stumbled into a galactic conflict between hunters and their victims. Earth's colonial expansion had accidentally placed them at the center of a war that had been raging for thousands of years. "Tony," Jake said, "prepare a message for transmission to Earth. Tell them what we've learned and what we've captured. Humanity needs to know that we're not alone in the galaxy, and we're not the only ones who've been hunted." The message to Earth would change everything. Humanity had announced its presence in the galaxy not as victims or peaceful explorers, but as the species that had defeated the Vorthak hunting fleet. Word would spread quickly through alien communication networks about the new predators from the Sol system. Some species would see humans as potential allies against the Vorthak Empire. Others would view them as a new threat to be eliminated. But none would ever again make the mistake of considering humans to be easy prey. The Terra Nova and New Hope set course for the Kepler 442 system, where the colonists would still build their new home. But it would be a different kind of colony now. It would be a fortress world, where humans would prepare for the larger conflict that was coming. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. The survivors would make sure that mistake was never repeated. The age of human expansion into space had begun not with peaceful exploration, but with the first battle of a war that would reshape the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other Vorthak fleets received the news that their greatest hunting expedition had ended in total defeat. The prey animals from Sol 3 had become apex predators, and the balance of power in the galaxy was about to change forever.